Good morning, afternoon or evening, and welcome to another 0 AD Alpha 23 replay. In my last video I took you through a slinger attack with an absolute mass of slingers, just overwhelmed the enemy. It worked on an opponent here, Esperto, and that was possibly because his rating was 200 points lower than mine. My next game was attempting to use the same strategy but against someone with a very similar rating to myself, with the idea being how well would it translate to players that are a bit more experienced and that know a little bit more about the game. So as with always, I'll just speed this up ever so slightly and take you through my opening, which is much of a muchness. With always get the horse out here, the cavalry grabbing some of the chickens, 4 women, and these 4 soldiers will go off and start chopping wood. Other 4 women build a storehouse, a farmstead, and get harvesting the berries. And a second cavalryman comes out. He runs off over here unnecessarily, and then comes back to get the chickens before another 2 women will be out, and they will start producing houses as well as chopping some wood. So the first house goes up to make sure that I don't get housed very early on, and I carry on producing. So you'll notice this is slightly different to when I've played as Carthaginians. I've had 2 slingers have come straight off and gone straight onto stone, because I'm going to be needing stone more than I will be needing wood at this early stage. So the wood's basically just for house building, and these slingers will hopefully be able to keep me in a cycle of being able to produce more slingers. We've also got the first wood upgrade going, and all within the first 2 minutes, so I'm feeling relatively happy. And these 2 women that have just been produced here will quickly or very soon build a storehouse. One of them will go on to then being mining the stone, and one to the metal. Let's have a look at the opponent. So he has decided to get 5 women getting berries, but not with any kind of harvesting upgrade. And he has produced a spearman early on, but you'll notice that he also hasn't produced a storehouse. So he's got no access to upgrades, and also his workers are having to go that little bit further to deposit their wood. So it's slightly slower, but it has meant that early on he's been able to produce, and I think it's actually more than 6. So he's now got 7 skirmishers, which does mean that if someone were to attempt an early cavalry attack with, say 10 or 12 cavalry, he would actually, if he continues to produce skirmishers, be in a position to repel that attack and then be able to just get back to work, and he would actually be in a very strong position. Whereas someone that had committed so much to gathering, to getting cavalry, would then have to try and build their economy at a point when the other person would have a much stronger economy. So it's not the world's worst idea, but it's interesting to know whether it's actually worth doing that, to sacrifice all of this walking that they're having to do to deposit their wood. And whether he would actually have made the additional wood back in the shorter time frame than he would have been. It's one of those great imponderables. Maybe we'll know, maybe we won't. So here I built my first barracks, which, looking at things, is probably a little bit premature, as at this point I'm starting to realise I've got 1 farm going with only 2 people working on it, because unfortunately, the other 3 men have just started working on that. So that's fine, but I could probably do with the other women also, or getting another group of women starting to go and do some farming as well, because they are running. I'm running a little bit short of food. Only 70 food available isn't really sufficient at this stage. That said, I have got some troops over here that are doing a combination of mining and also chopping wood, so I'm keeping my my resources coming in, particularly the stone, although possibly it's a little bit early. I don't really need that much stone, and I'm now desperately trying to get my food back up, because that's not really at the point that it should be at right now. So with only 3 farms and and one of them only just maturing, there's not really sufficient income to justify having two places that can produce. And you can see that our populations are very, very similar between myself and my opponent. I've just surpassed him, but then he'll probably very shortly go and surpass me, because it tends to be that things are batched in 5 or in 4 or whatever. So I've still got one of my cavalry, although looking at him, he doesn't look very well. Yeah, he looks like they were 2, and in all likelihood one of them was attacked by a tiger, and there are some tigers around here. It's frustrating when they are. I mean, I can't actually see where any more are. There's one here, but I can just imagine, actually it could happen now, but quite often these tigers will be ambling around, and these particularly range troops, so skirmishers, will notice them and then think it's a good idea to just, in fact, look at that, almost as if by magic they decide to go and attack that. They've brought the tiger in, which is frustrating, because now if it gets as far as any of the women, they will be killed, and for nothing. So I can understand if a tiger was coming in that they might want to attack it, but the fact that they go out of their way to attract them in can be incredibly annoying. But there you go, the nature of playing God in some kind of role-playing game, or real-time strategy game, sorry. So I've now got a far greater number, so I've got 5 fields up and another 2 on the way. If we compare that to my opponent, he's only got the 4, so I'm going to be producing food at a far greater rate than he is. So unless he doesn't need as much food for some reason, he should really start to enhance the number of fields that he has. Unfortunately, due to the place of the stone and the metal and so on, it's not been possible to build nicely around there. Plus, the way my berries were meant that it was best that I got the best location for the store for the food. Has also caused me to kind of get these a bit disparate. That said, it's not too far to houses if an attack were to come, so it's not the end of the world. Just going to slow it down a little bit because we're getting to where stuff starts to happen. So what you'll notice is that my opponent at about 9.5 minutes reached the town stage, so phase 2. I'm nowhere near getting to that. You can see I've not got even remotely the level of wood required. I've now got groups of troops though in a number of different areas, all collecting all collecting wood and stone, and I've been very careful at this point to have a clear demarcation between those that are gathering stone, which are slingers, as we'll see here, and slingers here, and those that are gathering wood, which are the spearmen. What I normally like to do is keep spearmen gathering resources close to my base, because they can actually attack, albeit not particularly well. They're a hell of a lot better than anyone else attacking rams if they were to come, although I don't know if the Macedonians actually have rams. They're a faction that no one really seems to play, so it's quite surprising to find someone that does. So I'm building this second barracks here, which I now obviously feel with that amount of food that there's plenty of food going, so it's time to start increasing my production. There's another 5 slingers. I've not produced any more women, but I could do to get a load over here to get some more wood. But what my main aim here with this barracks was to increase my territory, because now that allows me to build a storehouse which is accessible for both this metal and also this wood. And you can see that I'm obviously going to be going for the wood first, because I've gone for it right next to the wood, and I can always build another storehouse later which is right next to the metal. Some more stone has also been revealed there. So looking at the populations now, it's only a few minutes ago that you noticed that we were pretty much level. Now I've moved into a lead of between about 25. Having said that, he is on phase 2 already, So he's behind in population, but each of his troops will have an advantage over me in terms of their their health. So you can see these people have got 120 health. Mine will now have 120 as well, but would previously have had only 100. And my slingers, I believe, would have had 50. They now have 60 in the same way as his skirmishers do. Opening up the map as it is now that I've got into the town phase, you can see that it's opened up a little bit more. I'm currently housed, but I'm starting to try and claim a large number of other resources. So these stone is there, and I've got some more stone that I can see. So the fact that I need a lot of stone for my slingers, this really map is absolutely a dream if you wanted to use this strategy. So if you see a map like this that's just got stone everywhere and you're playing as Britons, then go for it. It's about as good a map as I could have hoped for. Even when you consider on the other side of the map, if I'd just been unlucky and drawn the other side, there's only the two, I believe, there. Yeah, so looking at the map, I have been incredibly fortunate with how it's been divided up. It doesn't seem hugely fair that I have all of that. But there you go, that's the luck of the draw. And if you don't have that, then you just need to expand more quickly. So he's worked hard to claim this stone. So he's built a tower, which means there's no way that I would be able to get that stone, even if it weren't in his territory. So if later on when I push towards his territory, it will be difficult for me to get that stone. Having said that, it's because of the nature of the city phase, giving you yet another layer. This is unlikely to ever be under threat in that way. What he could do is later on, having reached the city phase, be looking to get a tower overlooking these resources. I've just noticed his cavalryman who's just patrolling, and I've let him get on with whatever it is that he's doing. So he's literally just keeping an eye out on what's happening all around, which is quite a clever strategy. I normally use my dog to do that. Having said that, I think if we actually look, I forget to move the dog for the entire game. Yep, he's still there. So he's been the only time he moved was when they tried to lay a field on top of him and he wanted to get out of there. So I've now also built a an armory, blacksmith, and I'll be getting the upgrade. Oh wow, I couldn't have timed that better. So I'm getting the first upgrade, and I'm also getting myself to the city phase. So you may have noticed that, okay, I was still, I think, about the 13th minute, still in the first phase, but I've just gone straight through to the city phase after that. Built an armory, built a market, and built probably a tower, and also what these things are called, a temple. Gosh, I was called them a prayer factory, but that's probably quite a dismissive name to give them. So the four of them there allow me to move to the next phase, and I'm just getting the final upgrades that I will get for each of these resources. I don't normally get the one that costs 1,000. Maybe it is worth it, but I've always sort of felt that by the time you've got to this kind of stage, you invariably have so much wood anyway, you don't actually really need it that much more coming in. It's more about trading as you get later in the game. Speaking of which, you will have noticed that my market is right at the back in the centre. The reason that I put it there is because I like to have a vertical, if you view it from this angle, kind of trade line. So my second market I normally put somewhere around here. The idea being that that area is pretty well protected. Some people that I've played against have put it one in this corner, one in this corner, and then had them going along the back of the map. When they do that, you generally haven't developed as much around these areas, maybe just a few towers or something to keep people out, but some cavalry can very quickly come and actually just annihilate you and like take out your traders, and you don't necessarily even notice that quickly, because it can be done so quickly. So they can just kill all of the traders in, at a time when you're having a skirmish somewhere else on the map. You don't realise, and then later on you go and look at it and you just think, where are my resources? And the fact is that you've lost them. Whereas if your traders are going north to south, they don't get killed quite so easily. So looking again at the overall map, you'll see that I've got 2 fortresses, one of which I'm using to create rams, the other one I'm using to supercharge my rams. So I've got the first advanced siege upgrade. I've now got both of the ranged infantry upgrades, because I have a large amount of slingers coming. If we look over here, I've already got 73 there, a further 15, and a few skirmishers. So in population size, I've now moved about 80 clear, so he has been a bit slow to produce. And the fact that if you look, throughout all of these barracks, he's getting the unlocked champion units thing. So I think he has decided he's got a fairly substantial workforce, and he now wants to produce an army. Having said that, it's 20 minutes into the game, so if you've played the game at all, really, you'll realise that about 20 minutes is when you start to see things happening. So, or even in the slower games, I mean, quite often at the very top level, the people are going back and forth with rushes very early on. So this tower is doing what I mentioned earlier. So it's, if we look when it's finished, it now covers both of these areas, which means that those resources are effectively his now. There's very little that I can do to stop them. And he's building his first fortress as well, albeit the Macedonians don't actually create siege weapons from their fortress. So what I'm doing instead is now massing troops. So I've got 115 slingers. They're souped up as far as they can be, and I'm ordering a small force of cavalry. And my tactic at this point, with all my rams in there and my rams upgraded, I'm just waiting to get will to fight, which gives them their final boost, and quickly they're just swarming around to handle the additional hand in their wood. These cavalry are going to launch a pretty pathetic attack. The idea is that they will just go round the side, and in doing so will attract his attention. I've noticed from my point of view here, actually I haven't noticed that tower yet, these guys are massing on his border, while these guys are going around to do 2 things. One, to check out what's going on, and the other is to try and attract his troops inward. So as you can see, he's pulling his troops in towards here, while at the same time I launch my main attack. So that, from his perspective, he's probably feeling pretty great about himself. He's had these guys attack the things, but he's still got his muster points set well away. That before he's even started moving his troops in, he's already lost his defence tower, and he's having to pull troops in from all over the place. Having said that, a number of them are champion units, so he does have 15 champion shield bearers, these guys, and I think his idea is that those shield bearers would form the bulk of his fighting force. He's also bringing in his cavalry, who's still alive, so well done to that cavalryman for staying alive for the whole period. He's trying to get a hero, but he's taken too long to build this fortress, and his shield bearers are going to take out these rams without too much difficulty, but too late to stop the, unfortunately for him, too late to stop them destroying the fortress, which means that he doesn't get his hero, which may have given him a big bonus. I'm not actually sure what that hero does, but what I can say is that he's really struggling here. We look at just the numbers that I have. There's still 62 slingers, and I'm producing them 5 at a time solidly from 3 barracks. They only take, I believe, let's have a look, 31 seconds to produce 5 of those, whereas his guys would take 62 seconds to produce the same number. So even though he's got an extra barracks, he would be able to produce 20 of those in the same amount of time that I could produce 30 slingers. And obviously if you have a critical mass of slingers, then the melee troops don't even get close to the the slingers before they're dead. He's got a group here that are trying to get this ram. It doesn't look like they'll do it. No, they've been got rid of, and he's even knocked out a farm before he dies. And now, as you'll see, all of the barracks are starting to lose their loyalty. What he really needs to do is garrison these barracks before they disappear, but he's sending his troops to fight, and they are going to, again, arriving 4 at a time. They're dead before they've even reached the thing. There's far too many troops. I've actually managed to forget about these troops, but I'm just bringing in some druids as well, because they will offer additional help in terms of doing it. This is what I'd love to see as well. Some people have started mining. Okay, they've stopped now, but brilliantly, because I accidentally clicked nearby here, they've thought, oh, well, I've got nothing to do, I'll mine and then walk back 40 miles to deliver that. But that's what happens. So I'm just capturing the barracks, which is something well worth doing if you are in an opponent's time. He's actually resigned, so the game was all, well, it's all over. He's got a handful of troops here and there. He's got a horse, a cavalryman there, a couple of guys there. Very, very little, and lost a town centre. Everything's gone. So I think what that's shown to me is that yes, it is possible to use that strategy up to quite a high level. I think it's all about the speed at which you can produce this large number of slingers, and as long as you can continue to produce slingers at a reasonable rate behind them. As you see, there's another 7 slingers there. There's just group upon group upon group coming forward. I didn't need to produce any more rams, although I could have also sent another 5 rams if need be. I felt it was in a strong position to do so. I mean, you look at the thing, phenomenal amount of wood, and food was solid, stone and metal. So there was even, I believe, I could have got an armor upgrade if it looked like that might make a difference. And there's still plenty. Actually, there's not a lot left there or there, but still got all of this stone and all of this stone, and in fact all the stone back here. So in a long battle that would have happened. Having said that, I should have produced a market. That slipped my mind, but that's what happens when you're not one of the best players out there. The really good players don't make those kind of mistakes, but not having a market and not having any traders going back and forth means that I wasn't able to maintain the levels of stone, but actually it wasn't required, and those would have just taken up space in my population capacity, which was 250. So that was the game. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a go with the Britons slinger attack if you want to. And I'll be doing my next few videos with also still with Britons, but also with Ptolemies and with Carthaginians. So lots more stuff to learn there. So hope you enjoyed, and take care. Bom dia e adeus para agora.